everyone, today I'm going to show you how I do a fill-in from start to finish. If you would like to see the whole process, keep on watching and I hope you enjoy the video. I always start off with pushing back the cuticles, and I use a metal cuticle pusher, but you can also use a wooden cuticle stick. I push back the cuticles very gently and I make sure I don't apply too much pressure. This client's cuticles push back very easily, so I don't have to put in too much effort. To remove the old product, I use a ceramic bit with black abrasion, and I always make sure I go from the cuticle down to the free edge, and then I move my bit in a sideways motion across the cuticle area, and I make sure to not apply too much pressure, and I put it in forward mode on 18 RPMs. This works really well with not getting the bit too hot, and it keeps the client very comfortable, which is very important. You always want to make sure that you're holding the client's finger in a specific way. I usually hold my thumb on the finger and I lean my pinky on the knuckle area of the finger. This keeps my hand very steady and makes sure I let the bit glide over the nail plate. You always want to make sure that you stop with going over the nail, so you prevent any heat spots. And whenever the client feels uncomfortable or it feels hot, I just move on to the next nail and then come back to it later on. This is also the perfect time to remove any lifted areas, and I always make sure I go underneath the lifted area and not on top of it, because that won't work with releasing it from the nail. When I'm done with removing the old product, I make sure to dust everything off so it's clearly for me to see where I need to clean the cuticles. I put my cuticle bit in the forward mode on 10 RPMs and I glide it across the cuticle area very gently. I don't dig into the nail plate, I just glide it over and make sure not to make too many passes, because this can obviously damage the nail bed or the nail plate. If you have any leftover gel polish that you didn't get off with the removal bit, you can also gently glide the bit over the areas that had a little bit of gel polish left and just clean that up. Before you start any service of the nails, it's important to make sure the client doesn't have any allergies and to check if the client has any wounds or maybe rashes. It's very important, especially if you're going to use gel and an e-file. You also want to make sure that your tools and bits are really clean. I usually use barbicide and soapy water, alcohol to clean everything so that I know for sure that it's ready to use. Now I'm using that same bit to clean the other side of the cuticle and the sidewalls. I put my eval in reverse and it's still on 10 RPM. Just put it in reverse to clean the right side of the nail area because I think it's way easier. To further smooth down the nail, I use a 180 grit sanding band. I think this works really easy with making sure the surface of the nails is very clean and smooth, and obviously leaves a little bit of texture so that the gel can adhere very nicely. After I smooth down the surface of the nails, I go in with a 180 grit nail file, and I'm using the 180 side. My client has natural nails, so I make sure to only use the 180 side. I take in the sidewalls just a little bit, and then I take off a little bit of length. I said sidewalls, but I mean the sides of the free edge, of course. You never want to shape into or file into the sidewalls, because that can make the nails break very easily, and that is just something you never want to do. Okay, so while I'm shaping the nails, I always ask my client, still like this shape? Would you like them shorter? Would you like, just ask the client these kind of questions and make sure that they check if they like it. Don't be scared to ask like, hey, do you think this is okay? Do you like the shape? Do you like this length? I always do that with my clients and they really appreciate it. And it gives them the space to tell you what they think of it so that your service can be even better. After shaping, I use a buffing block. This is also 180 grit, I think. Actually, I don't know for sure, but I think it is. And I use this to make sure the edges of the nails aren't as sharp. And this also really helps with adhering the gel products. I never skip this step because when I do, I feel like the gel peels off a little bit easier or sooner than the client would like to. Here I'm using that same cuticle bit to clean the underside of her nails. Even though these are her natural nails, I still make sure that there's no leftover gel or any residues of gel, maybe. I make sure to clean that. And also when the natural nail has some discoloration, like on the surface, maybe from food or something like that, you can also very lightly go over that so you can remove that or clean it up a little bit. And when I do this step, I put my nail drill on 3 to 4 RPM, very low. To further clean the underside of the free edge, I use a angled brush with some alcohol on it, and I rub it on the underside and a little bit into it, make sure it's very clean. My client always loved this step. Makes her feel like her nails are very clean. So here I'm showing you my alcohol and my angled brush that I use to clean underneath. So we're going back to cuticles now, and I always like to use cuticle nippers to cut away any dead skin, but you can also skip this step and just go in with your ball bit. I go in afterward to smooth out the areas where I've cut a little bit so that it can grow smoothly and not with any ridges. These are the cuticle nippers that I used, and now I go in with a red abrasion ball bit on 7 to 8 RPMs. I never go any lower and I never go any higher because I think this is the perfect RPM to make sure my client stays comfortable and it removes the skin very well. You can also use this on the sides of the finger if the client has any callous skin. It works really well. So I always do the one side in forward mode and then I do the other side in the reverse mode. This way you can smooth out the skin from both sides. Makes it very easy. After I did my removal, my cuticle cleaning and everything, shaping, I clean the nails with a manicure brush and some alcohol. I really like to do this because all the debris and dust goes away, makes the nails very clean. And I also make sure to brush downwards. This is how they look after the cleanup. Very nice. I make sure to clean the underside as well, just to make sure there's nothing left, maybe some dust or like lint. It always happens. To fill in my client's nails, I was doubting between these 3 gels. I really like them, but I went with the milky pink because it's a really nice base for the design we're going to do. So now I'm putting on dehydrator. I make sure to put enough. I scrub it in a little bit, and I also make sure I get the free edge. After that is evaporated, I go in with a nail primer and I make sure to put it only on the nail and the free edge and make sure it doesn't touch the skin. This prevents any allergies or irritation. You don't need to cure your nail primer in the lamp. You can just let it air dry and then go in with your base coat. This is the base coat that I will be using. I put a very thin layer and I make sure to scrub it into the nail, just so it really gets in there. And I always kept the free edge very thin. You don't need to apply too much product. And after application, you can put this in the LED lamp for 60 seconds. 30 seconds is also okay because it's transparent, so it cures really well. And I always cure the thumbnails separately. This makes sure the side walls can be cured fully as well. So after my base coat has cured, I go in with my milky pink builder gel. I first apply a very thin layer. This is my slip layer, and I make sure to push it in really well. I go along the side walls, so the gel that I'm going to put on top has a guide to where it needs to flow. And I'm putting a bead of builder gel near the cuticles, and I'm pushing it towards the cuticle area and then dragging it downward like this. It's a sideways motion, and I make sure the free edge is very thin. You don't need a lot of product in that area. I go in with a liner brush to get the side walls. Also, make sure that there's enough product, especially on the part where the white line begins, because that is the pressure point and you need a good structure to make sure the nails don't break. After I'm finished with one nail, I make sure to flash cure for 10 seconds, and then I just continue those same steps on every nail. If any gel gets onto the skin, it's very important to use a cleanup brush with some alcohol to remove the gel before your client goes into the lamp. This is again to prevent any allergies or irritation. I really like to use a liner brush to get the sidewalls. This makes it very easy to get the gel very thin on the sidewalls, and you can also move the gel towards the apex area. You can make it thinner near the cuticles. It's very handy to have. You don't have to use a liner brush when you're using builder gel, but it does make everything very easy. And how much gel you're going to need depends a lot on how long the nails are, what type of nails they are. Are they more flat, or do they have like a strong C curve? That makes a big difference in the amount that you're going to need. But you can tell if you have too much, and you can always file it off later on. This is the builder gel that I use. I really like it. It's a medium consistency. After I have filled all the nails, I clean off the sticky layer with some alcohol. This makes it easier to file so that your nail file or bits don't get clogged up with the gel residue. To make sure the gel is fully cured, I use a nail tool to check the sound. If it makes like a hard clicking sound, you know that the gel is fully cured. I always check the sidewalls because sometimes the client leans her hand towards a specific direction and the lamp can get in those areas to cure. So this is what the nails look after they have been filled in with the gel. I go in with my sanding band to remove any thickness or uneven spots, and I also go around the sidewalls and cuticle area very lightly to make sure the gel lays very smooth and thin. It's important to have the sidewalls and cuticles very thin so that they won't get any lifting, or it's just a nicer way to grow them out. I forgot to mention, before I use the sanding band, I always put the edge of the sanding band, like I turn my e-file on like 3 RPM, and then I put the edge of my sanding band on a nail file, so the sharp edge of the sanding band will be dull and you won't make any cuts in the skin. After smoothing everything out, I go in with my hand file again to further shape the nails. I make sure that the nails look very nice and not too bulky on the sides as well. And I smooth over the free edge, like I put my nail file parallel to the nail plate and I go over it very soft and fast to make sure the free edge has a very thin feel. It's very beautiful if you do it this way. Now I go in with my buffing block to further smooth the surface. It's not to shape, it's really actually only to smooth it out. Makes it very soft looking. I once again go in with my manicure brush to remove all the dust. This makes sure it's all clean to be polished. So my client wanted a terracotta color on her nails, and then 2 nails will be nail art, one with pumpkins, and the pointer finger will be some lines in the same color. I'm so sad because this step I didn't film, but it's a really cute design. So these are the lines we did. I used bronze, black, white, and a golden gel polish. I am just applying some top coat there. So this is everything. I am putting on some cuticle oil and I'm rubbing that in. This is how they turned out. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching.